Hi guys, and welcome back to the world of 28mm. In this week's episode we're going to be taking a look at some water effects and how to create a fountain of water. Okay, so I've got a model here. I sell it on my eBay shop, sorry for the shameless plug. And basically what we're going to do, we're going to add some life to it and bring some water out of the top so it cascades back down into the fountain basin. Okay, so let's head down to the table and we'll crack on. I'll see you in a sec. Okay, so first step is to create the substructure for the water jets. So, excuse me, sorry. What I've got here are 4 pieces of wire that I've pre-trimmed and pre-bent to the shape that I want. Okay, they're roughly about 1.5 inches long, but basically measure your first one straight, put it onto your water fountain, bend it out to the shape that you want, and then match it up with all the others and bend them to the same shape. Okay? And then you'll end up with 4 separate, what will be the jets of water. Okay, so once you've got that, I've got a bit of milliput here. You could use whatever you want really. You can use air dry clay, you could use a bit of hot glue, that'll do fine. But you just want to create something to put these in, stick these onto. So I'm just going to splodge that onto the top there. Okay, so we've got a little bit of a milliput on top, like that. And then it's just a case of coming in with these 4 pieces of wire and just feeding them into the milliput and getting them into position like that. And put the second one in, just put it into the middle there, and oh, I put that the wrong way. Okay, so you can see where we're going with this. We'll just install the last 2. Then basically what we want after this is we just want to let this milliput dry. And in the case of this, it will take about 24 hours roughly for milliput to dry. If you're using air dry clay, sorry, that obviously won't take as long. Done it again. Okay, so there we go. There we have our substructure for the jets. Alright, so I'm going to let this milliput dry now for 24 hours and then we'll come back to it and we'll move on to the next step. Alright, see you in a sec guys. I decided while I was waiting for the milliput to dry that I'm going to go down, we're still going to do the same thing, but I'm going to make it more of a fantasy. So we're going to do like make it a bit more interesting and make it more into like a chemical fountain, if you were. So we're going to have some greens and stuff in there, but you can use any colour pigments. You can do it clear if you want, but I thought this time we'll just have a bit of fun and we'll go down the fantasy road. So what I've got here is just some Woodland Scenics water effects, that stuff. Get that in the camera. Yep, that stuff. And then if you've watched my terrain test where I was mixing the pearlescent paints in, you'll see in there how to mix paints and water effects. So I'm just going to mix this one up green. Come on, off you come. Right, 3 splodges in there. Should make it nice and, oh yeah, nice and chemically out. I might put a little bit more in there. Make it a bit darker. Oh yeah, that's better. But yeah, if you want to see more about mixing paint into water effects, then go and check out my terrain test of mixing the pearlescents, because I use inks and acrylics and everything in there. Okay, so that's all mixed up. We've got a nice Nice chemically green colour there. Oh, if you're wondering what colour, I think it's Goblin Green I'm using. Citadel Goblin Green, the old one. So, now that your wires are in place, your milliput's dry, pour this in and then let that dry, and we'll move on to the next step. So, just going to pour that in there. Obviously, if you're making this properly, then paint the inside first. But because I'm just doing a tutorial for you guys, I haven't bothered. Right, there we go. So it's nice and full now with our toxic-y looking sludge. Alright, so I'm going to let that dry. If you're known to water effects, you'll know it will probably take 24 to 48 hours. If you're not, that's how long it's going to take. It can extend the drying time when you're putting extras in, like acrylics or washes or tints, inks, things like that. It can extend the drying time. So you can see, I can't tilt this up too much because it'll all flood out, but you can see our wires are in the water, so the bottoms of the wires won't be visible by the time this is all dry. Another quick note: if you are doing this clear, this is mainly the reason why I decided to do a chemically sort of fantasy one. If you're doing a clear normal water fountain, spray, use bare wire. I've used like coated wire here. It's just like gardening wire. But if you're making a clear like normal water fountain, take that plastic sheet off, so you just left with bare wire, and then just bend them to the shape that you need, and then just spray them white, and it will blend it into the water effect that you'll see us do when this is dry. Alright, so I'll quit rambling. We'll let this dry 24 to 48 hours, and we'll come back and do the next step. Alright, see you in a sec, guys. Okay, so next up on the agenda, we're going to create the streams of water coming out from the fountain. So to do this, I'm going to use some Woodland Scenics water effects. This is the gloopier stuff, though it's not the liquid. So I put some of that into a palette next to me, and I've got a coffee stirrer and a toothpick here as just sort of applicators. So I'm just gonna do one so you guys can see what I'm doing. But we're just going to take a splodge to start off with, and we're going to work it onto the wire. Now you'll probably realise that this is going to be a case of building up the layers and just putting it on sort of quite thinly to start off with, and then build it up as you go along. Now the key to getting the right effect on this, once you've got it the wire covered, is following the direction of the water. So this first layer doesn't matter too much because it's going to be covered up by another layer. But once you're happy with your coverage, so I'll lose that bit there. Once you're happy with your coverage, start dragging it out so it's so you're creating the illusion that water is actually water coming out of this. I'm just going to put a few stipples on top to simulate that. Okay, I think that's going to be good enough for our first layer. I'll just get some more down the bottom here. If you get any on the statue itself, you can just wipe it off with a bit of tissue. Okay, so I'm happy with that for the first layer. So you can see what we've done there is we've covered the wire in the Woodland Scenics stuff. And then hopefully you can make out the stipples that I've created on top to sort of create that illusion that water's coming out. Okay, so I'm going to do that to all four of them, and I'm also going to splodge a bit in the middle between the wires so that it covers up the milliput
and the base of the wires, and it makes it look like there's a frothy bit at the bottom. Okay, so I'll get that done, and then I'll come back when that's dry. Alright, see you in a sec, guys. Okay, so there we are, it's all dry. As you can see, we've got a nice clear coat over the wire. So what we're going to do now is we're going to put another layer on. Now to my left I've got some of the same Woodland Scenics water effects, but I've mixed in with a bit of Goblin Green. Okay, so this will help colour our water streams. So we'll do what we did in the first session, and we'll just I've got a hair attached to me. Get off. Right. We're just going to, sorry about that, we're just going to go over the tops of these again, but this time with our coloured water effects. Okay, so same as before, make sure you get right down to the bottom and you cover all of the original white stuff up. Get a bit more on me, little coffee stirrer. And get some around the front on there as well. Okay, so the most important part to this is the toothpick. Now you'll notice I didn't use it earlier. So the toothpick's is there just to help us sculpt some the water flow into it, so to speak. So if I just get this bit spread out. Go. Okay, so now we're just going to get our toothpick and we're just going to run it across and down the fountain, just very lightly. We're just putting some stipples and some lines in it to give the illusion that the water is flowing to the outside of the fountain and down. Okay, and this, like I say, this will help you create the illusion of flowing water. Do that underneath bit there. Oh, I've missed a bit at the side there. Naughty ads. Missed a bit at the side. There we are. Okay, and then, like I say, we're just going to go through it and put some grooves in it to make it look like we've got water running. Okay, so there's our first stream of water done. I'll turn that around so you can see it. Okay, so make sure, put some more time into it than I have. I'm just doing a quick version to show you guys, but put some stipples in there, make some lines to create that illusion of flowing water, and make sure it goes all the way down to the bottom. Excuse me. Okay, so I'm going to finish off the other three, and then I'll come back when it's dry. Alright, and we'll move on to the next step. Okay, see you in a sec, guys. So now that's all dry, all that's really left to do is we have to blend in the wires into the actual water effect, and while we're at it we can also sort of create some splashes, you know, and bring it to life. So I've got an old paintbrush here and I've mixed up some of the Woodland Scenics water effects, what we've been using all along, that stuff, and I've mixed in a bit of Vallejo Goblin Green. And take an old brush. This is water soluble, so you can always wash it off after, but use an old one. And we're just going to go into the water effect, which I've got pre-mixed, and then we're going to go in. Try and do it so you can see it on the camera. Yeah, there we go. We're just going to go in. Sorry if you can't see it, guys. I've got to be able to see what I'm doing. And like I say, we're just going to blend in these wires now and make it so. Hopefully, can you see that? That's a bit hard to make out, but you can see how I've feathered it in down at the bottom here. What I'll do is I'll do all four. Actually, before I do, another thing to do on this section as well is take your paintbrush and just stipple sort of the inside of the water with it. so you'll get like a ripply effect in it. And then what we can do later on is come back when this is dry and dry brush it. You can see what I've done there. Hopefully you can see it's lighter around here, and it's just a case of coming in with your brush and stippling this water effect on. Okay, so that should give you a rough idea. Okay, so I'm going to do that to the whole thing, wait for that to dry, and we'll come back and put the finishing touches on it. Okay, so I'll see you in a sec. Okay, so that's all dry. So now that's all that's left to do is really just to pop some of this colour back out. So to my left here I've got some of the original green that we used for the base colour, and I've just mixed in a little bit of white. This is Citadel's Ceramite white. So I've just mixed that in, and I've got a flat head dry brush here, and we're just going to go over and dry brush the water streams and around the base. So make sure you get a nice dry brush, so you don't want too much pigment going on there. And then we're just going to come over to the top, and we're going to dry brush that brighter green on. Like I say, this just adds a bit more depth to the piece. Okay, so I've done one. You can see it. Hopefully you can see that on the camera. Done one there. And now what we're going to do, this brush is falling apart, is we're going to do the same again, but we're going to go across the bottom of it this time, across the actual body of water underneath the jets, because then we can pick out some of these nice stipples that we made in the last part. You might find that this might take a couple of coats. This one's looking alright actually, so I think it'll be fine. But yeah, so that's it for this for the fountain. So I'll just basically finish up this. I'll put up a few photos for you guys, so you can see it all in its glory and finish, so to speak. And I'll catch you up in the outro. And there you have this week's episode, guys. I hope you've enjoyed making the fantasy water fountain along with me. If you've got any questions or comments, leave them in the section below, and I'll try and get back to them as quickly as possible. I apologise, I just wanted to say about the drying times and stuff, why this has taken so long. Essentially, when I started making this, it was nice and hot and sunny, and things were drying and curing in the proper time. And then the second day, it started to rain, like, consistently. So the humidity's gone up in the air, which means every drying time has gone out the window. So I apologise for it taking so long. I'm going to stop waffling now. So the usuals for the video: like it if you like it, share everything anyone else would like to see it, and don't forget to subscribe for next week's episode. Okay, have fun, guys.